Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick and I support women to bloom in midlife. I'm your host of Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. What is the awakening? This is the moment in time when humanity rises up out of the darkness. Who is awakening? Each one of us present on earth today, reclaiming our sovereignty, seeking greater possibilities in our reality and looking for solutions. We know being awakened is not a lofty ideal but a necessity. If we can transform ourselves, we can change the world. Guests on Her Conversations will speak to your spirituality, sensuality and soul. Listen to their stories and hear how they are in service to the world. Let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. Before this episode with Gwen Allison, I just want to invite you to download my midlife meditation that was created to remind you that your life is a precious gift and reaching midlife is a milestone worth celebrating and marking the start of an exciting new chapter. Also tune into Her Inspirations. It's a sister podcast to this title, and within each solo episode I aim to inspire midlife women to recognise and embrace the wisdom of their experience and allow this next chapter and this next season of your life to be the most free and fruitful. Midlife is your time to bloom. Links to everything are in the show notes below. My guest this week is Gwen Allison. She teaches Reiki healing to a master level and offers transformational life, mindset and business coaching to individual clients and groups. She's committed to facilitating personal empowerment and spiritual fortification by enlightening others about what they can do for themselves if they're committed to their own self-evolution. During our conversation, Gwen shares about the dawn of her own spiritual journey, discovering the power of Reiki and taking the leap from a corporate career into creating her own healing business. So as always, I begin by asking my guest, Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel that higher energetic resonance?
Since I was able to leave my corporate job and do what I'm doing now full time, I think I feel that most days. So I wake up in the morning and I'm just enthusiastic about my day. I don't get the Monday blues, the Sunday night blues, all of that. I'm just excited to kind of get up and do what I've got to do. I have to stop myself though, rather than jumping out of bed. I have to then do my meditation, my sort of morning practices, and I do my self Reiki. And also in that space, I feel like an elevation of my resonance, my vibration. So they're the main two sort of places, which is great to start your day that way. Not saying that I don't have any ups and downs, but predominantly that's how it is. But the other times when I feel like that, Carol, is probably when I'm teaching. So when I'm teaching Reiki, which again, I'll probably talk a little bit more about later, and people kind of suddenly start practicing the Reiki on each other, and then they start to get it. They start to understand the truth of who they really are. That makes sense. They're not just this physical being. They are this spiritual energy as well. It's part of this bigger energy, God, the divine, the universe, whatever you want to call it. So that kind of epiphany moment for them is, God, it just raises my vibration no end. And keeps me going. This is why I teach what I teach, just to kind of spread that information. So yeah, I would say they are the main sort of points when I feel like that. Having particularly the corporate piece, having been in corporate for 30 years, 20 years in IT, and just thinking, well, is this it? To suddenly waking up in that bliss, in that enthusiasm for the day. Because you're doing what you love.
Yeah.
So that's really it for me. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay.
You're welcome.
And before we go any further, Gwen, I want to hand it over to you just to share a little bit about you and who you are and how you got to be doing the work that you're doing today.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So my name is Gwen Allison from My Spiritual Butterfly. I am the founder of My Spiritual Butterfly, And within that space, I teach Reiki. I'm also a transformational life coach, which I've been since 2016. So my mission is really to help primarily women, but men as well. Men need healing too, just to heal from past wounds, elevate their confidence, their self-belief, eradicate all those limiting beliefs so they can live a happy, fulfilling life, and not die with any regrets. But how I got into that, I would say my journey started probably around the time just before I got divorced, which is about 2004, 5, 6, around that time. I've been married for 13 years. We were together for 15 years, but married for 13 years. My daughter at the time was kind of 8 years old, but it was around about the time I started to discover things like the law of attraction and Deepak Chopra's 7 laws of spiritual success, and The Secret and things like that, which were finally giving me answers that I'd been seeking for decades prior. I was probably around 40 around that time, but I was brought up a Catholic, which gave me the foundations and I guess my connection to the divine. But there were so many unanswered questions and so many things I didn't connect with. And it left me feeling like we had no power in our lives. We were born, whatever life threw at us, we just had to move through, and then we died, and then we'd have some bliss. And it just didn't resonate. And so when I was going through the divorce and discovering these new teachings, and to be honest, that was probably the catalyst for the divorce because I was really growing. And my ex-husband at the time was kind of staying the same, and I didn't want to be that person. And so it just kind of allowed me to, as I said, fill a bit of a void that I've been carrying for a long time. And I'd explored different religions as well and things like that. But this just made sense. It felt like the truth when I heard that we can actually, by looking at what we say, looking at how we feel about things, our emotions, and what we think, our thoughts particularly, we could begin to change not only ourselves, but as a result of changing ourselves, the world around us changes. And it wasn't the other way around, that we had that power to manifest our reality in a completely different way, in a more powerful way. So when I was going through the divorce, I started putting that work into practice, you could say, and using the law of attraction to plan my life after the divorce, to move through the emotions I was kind of feeling. But it also helped me to understand the pain that my partner was going through, which I hadn't really connected with before. I'd made the decision. It wasn't really going down well with my ex-husband at the time, or my husband at the time. And he was really angry as a result of that. And so lots of clashing between us during that period. But then I just had this overwhelming compassion for him. And I could see the pain that my decision caused, not only him, but his mum, who was like my mother-in-law at the time, my daughter. I still stood by the decision. I still felt it was the best thing for me, but I was able to then just have that compassion and soften things and have, I guess, better conversations and not be this kind of attacking sort of mode all the time. And as a result of that, my ex-husband is still in my life today. He's still very much in my daughter's life. He's very much my go-to person, or one of my go-to people if I need something done or whatever. And that I don't think would have happened if I hadn't have had those realizations and had been introduced to things like the law of attraction, The Secret, and things like that. I did try Reiki around that time, but it didn't really. I tried it. I think I was still very left-brained. I was still in the corporate world, although I was exploring things like the law of attraction. I hadn't gone into the depths of my spiritualness, if that made sense, and energy work. And so I tried Reiki, which was my first experience of energy work. And, it was a place in South Croydon at the Buddhist Center there, and a lady was doing some Reiki there. And this is, as I said, ages ago. This is like early 2000s. And I didn't feel anything. She was hands off. I didn't feel anything. So I completely dismissed Reiki at the time. I thought it was a rip-off. I thought, I'm lying there, I'm relaxed, and then she's charging me 40 quid. What's going on? But that was my first encounter of Reiki, but I dismissed that. And at the time, where I was able to move through my divorce in this more kind of elevated way. I wanted to share that with other women as well, so that they were more forward focused as opposed to looking back and the blaming and the bringing up and the regurgitation of the stories, if that's the word, regurgitating the stories about their partner and the ex and why they were doing what they were doing, instead of creating the new life that they wanted for themselves. So I trained as a life coach in 2008 and did the advanced life coach training. And then I started coaching on the side, coaching women who were going through divorce. Some were going through redundancy and things like that, and really enjoyed that. But it wasn't until sort of 7 years after that, 2015, and I had another breakup. And that's definitely the theme for my life, just going through different breakups and things like that. And I realized in this relationship that the person was really, really controlling, which initially was a lovely relief because I was a single mom. I was working in IT, which is very masculine. I was managing as well in IT, and looking after the house. I was doing everything, the masculine and the feminine. I was doing all the roles. And so finding someone who allowed me to just kind of sit back a little bit while they arranged things and sorted things out and did things, it felt amazing initially. But he became a little bit too controlling. And so I decided to kind of call it a day on that, basically, and end that. But I was still a little bit heartbroken because even though it was my decision, I still had some feelings for him. And so I wanted to get over those feelings really quickly. But I also wanted to add something to my life coaching. I wanted it to be more holistic. I wanted it to have a healing element to it. That makes sense, where I could help my clients more. And so Reiki kept coming up, and I was like, nope, Reiki's fish, tried that, don't want to do that again. But something made me kind of persevere with Reiki, and I decided rather than having a session, I thought, well, you know what, I'm going to actually go and learn this for myself because this woman was clearly doing it wrong. So I went to learn it. My Reiki master's Torsten Lang. His classes are quite big though. So I went to learn it. As I said, still very much logical, left-brained, wanting explanations for everything. Although I was doing my prayers and things like that, I wasn't deeply into my spiritual work. So I was a little bit overwhelmed initially. There's this massive class of people. I could feel and sense the energy of Reiki in my hands, which is kind of what Reiki is. We might talk about that later. I could feel this energy and I could see this bright white light when I closed my eyes and we were doing certain sort of meditations and things like that. But it felt like nothing compared to what other people were experiencing. You know, they were seeing beautiful colors and visions and pathways and, you know, all sorts of wonderful things. And so I kind of thought that I wouldn't be able to offer Reiki because I wasn't as intuitive or as psychic as these people were. So I was feeling a little bit sorry for myself. It's something I wanted to do, but I was feeling really sorry for myself, thinking, oh, I can't do this. And I remember during the break, eating my cookie, eating my biscuit, drinking my tea, just thinking, I'm not going to be able to do this. I love it. I really would love to do this, but I'm not going to be able to give people a good service. So I'm going to have to tap out. This is going to be my last thing that I do. I'm not going to go on to do Reiki 2 or anything else. But Torsten is from Germany, and his mom was also helping him because it was quite a big class with the teachings. And she's a little lady with a little pixie haircut. And she came up to me and she's like, you know, you have the brightest light than anybody else in the room. And I was like, oh. And I don't know if that was true or not, or whether God just gave her this thing to see, to say. But that was a thing that kind of turned everything around for me. It made me carry on with the journey. Once my head shrunk again, it made me carry on with the journey. You know, I started to practice myself Reiki straight away. I always knew I should meditate daily, but struggled to do that. And with Reiki, I was able to do that. And also, I forgot to mention, I was into like Dr. Joe Dispenza and his meditations as well. So I would kind of combine the two, do some of Dr. Joe's meditations, then do my Reiki after that every day. And I could start to feel energy more and more, feel it in my back, little tingling sensations in my body. So I did the Reiki level 2, which is more kind of intuitive Reiki, and love that as well. I was practicing on other people and getting beautiful feedback and experiencing so much myself when I was doing the treatments. And I started bringing it into my coaching as more of a meditation for people, kind of journey for people to kind of go through, and they could feel that energy. And then I kind of, this is kind of 2015 when I first learned Reiki. I did the Reiki Master 2 years later, not wanting to teach, just really wanting to immerse myself more in Reiki. And then in 2018, I qualified as a Reiki Master, sorry, qualified in 2017, started teaching in 2018. And as I said, the rewards from doing that has just been wonderful, just to be able to just spread this information, this teaching and it's something we all have within us, but people just don't know how to use it, how to focus on it. And then seeing them going out and just with them doing their self-work, that's rippling out and affecting their relationships, it's affecting their families, it's affecting their work and their work colleagues, and completely changing their lives. And I get emails so often, people saying how Reiki's changed their lives, and so grateful to have been introduced to it. So yeah, that's literally what I do now. I teach Reiki, I run workshops, I run retreats around Reiki. I also coach, a transformational journey. I take people through 3 months, 6 months journey to, as I said, release their limiting beliefs, open them up to the truth of who they are, the self-love that they can have. But also on a practical side, I do business coaching too, and help people who want to have holistic businesses to kind of get started in that and find their way. Or I've coached people to write their books and publish their books and things like that. So that's kind of me. And on a personal level, I have my daughter's now 25, who was 8 when we were getting divorced. And Reiki's helped so much with our relationship and with her. One of the things she learned from me during the divorce was how to hide your feelings and emotions and kind of cover it up with this. Some people call it toxic positivity. It was a little bit like that with law of attraction. Before I kind of learned to kind of sit with those emotions and greet them. So my daughter kind of developed a lot of anxiety and some depression because she held all her emotions in. She'd only see mum walking around the house being happy because I wanted her to be happy. I wasn't exposing her to what I was really going through either kind of relationships, really. And so Reiki was one thing that kind of helped with that, helping me to see that, first of all, helping me with Reiki. I could give her Reiki remotely, which she prefers rather than in person. So it's nice to be able to do that and see the change in her, but also the epiphany of she's got this. I don't need to fix her. She's not broken, just love her. That's all she needs. And she's said as much as well herself, and it's just, so it's helped me in so many ways with that. It's helped me with my current relationships, or relationship, I should say. And just in who I'm being, I'm a lot calmer. I don't get triggered so easily. And in my space of doing my self Reiki, I'm able to get so many wonderful ideas and epiphanies and solve problems and things like that. That really is my space, my sanctuary. So yeah, that's me.
That's
There's a lot there.
beautiful. Yeah, that's fine. Don't worry. It was nice to see how it had come into your life, especially at those pivotal moments, because I'm sure everyone can relate to going through a breakup. I mean, it's rare that you meet a person in the world that hasn't experienced
Yeah.
that on some level. And like you say, you can spend so much time looking back and pointing out and blaming and instead of like clearing the path and moving forward
Mhm.
what it is that you want to create and getting into the acceptance also that something has gone as far as it can go as well, because I think it's breakups are never not painful, like doesn't matter who the instigator is, but it's never not painful. But there are things that run their course, and for our own evolution, which is what you recognized, was
Mhm.
that I'm growing at a different pace here, and I need to step forward, which is a brave thing to do, because there was no guarantee really that what you were leaving was going to, you know, coming out of that security and going forward was going to be any better for you. I'm sure people will be like, why are you doing, why are you doing this when there's no clear indication? And then also you said you stepped away from the corporate world into now doing entrepreneurship with these intangible, spiritual things, which again is people will be like, why would you come from something that's so solid and secure and like clear to this thing? But I think more and more people are feeling that call and that draw towards creating and upholding and demonstrating that having these following the call of your spirit and then also creating from that point can be successful and sustainable and support you as much as it supports and transforms other people. How did you use it as well when you were making that transition from, corporate world into spiritual entrepreneur?
Mm. Yeah, it was a long transition. So
Mm.
for me, starting my business has been running 10 years now, but I was 5 years still in corporate before I left to completely do this full time.
Mhm.
Because of the fears you mentioned, the security, I was a single mom, I had the mortgage to pay, all of that.
Mm.
And the fear was real, which is why I delayed it for so long. The fear was real. But what made something always gives us the push, I think, sometimes. The more we avoid our path and we're not embracing that and trusting that, things kind of get difficult where we are in order to move us. So that was happening on the one hand.
Mm.
So my boss was a little bit of he was difficult with everybody basically. So he was one of the reasons why I was like, yeah, I really should just do this on my own. And my boss had started at the same time as me. He'd been there the same length of time as me. Really difficult to kind of work with, although I still love my job. And so I kind of stayed a little bit. Um, but then the pivotal moment was when my mum passed away in 2019. And, she was 89, so she was elderly. She lived in St. Lucia. And so once I remember me and my brother sitting on the veranda at our house in St. Lucia, just overlooking the hills in front of us and the sky. And, he was going through a bit of a proposed change. He was retiring early. He worked for the underground for 30 odd years and was looking forward to retiring and spending more time in St. Lucia, but it was still filling him with a lot of fear. And so we both sat on the veranda, having just buried mom, and we were saying, it just hit me. It just said, I don't want to get to 87, 89, 90, be on my deathbed and look back and go, why didn't I just start that business? Why didn't I just try St. Lucia? What's the worst that would have happened? I get another job or I come back to the UK. I just didn't want to leave this earth not having fulfilled my dreams and the things I wanted to do. And the fear of that was stronger than any other fear for me, was stronger than any fear of what people might think if it failed or, and I know myself, I thought, well, if that happened, if I didn't make any money or if the business crashed and, I know myself, I work hard, I'm conscientious, I would get another job. And I'd probably go back to the drawing board and start again, try again. So that was the catalyst really for me. I went back to my job. I was kind of like IT director level for a Japanese bank. I went back to my job. I handed in my notice. And my friends at work said, oh, my boss had handed in his notice too, like 2 weeks before. So it's almost like he was my teacher. He was put there to push me out because I can't 100% say that I would have left if he wasn't there. I might have stayed and then not done all of this and not reached as many people. So that was a big thing. I did make sure on a practical note, if anyone's thinking about it, as I said, I'd been running the business part-time in the evenings and weekends. I would never advise anyone to just leave and then say, right, I'm starting a business, but, have that business running. You understand about the business, you've learned about the business. But also I had time to save a contingency. So I had a little contingency pot which helped. It didn't completely eradicate the fear, but it helped, you know, to know that you had some kind of cushion. So that's definitely something I would recommend if someone were thinking about making this leap, really. But it is a leap of faith. So yeah, just having my daily practice every morning, visualizing what I wanted every morning and seeing that starting to manifest, just having this trust in a higher power, and understanding that what we want is tiny, minuscule in the bigger scheme of things. If you think about this universe and the fact that this isn't the only universe, there are billions of universes. So we're tiny, tiny little specks of dust, or you might say. And so what we want, we think is a big thing, a massive thing, but to the universe, the divine, a higher power, something, you know? And so surrendering to that, and kind of like with the divorce, looking forward at looking at what I wanted, you know, and having those moments when you maybe post your first thing or, you know, on Instagram or something like that, and having the fear and then realizing that no one really is that bothered. They're going on with their life. They're not thinking about you all day in the post that you posted this morning.
Exactly. Yeah.
But as I said, always going back to that moment, as I said, in St. Lucia, and thinking, yeah, I just want to do something meaningful in this world. I want to help people in a powerful way. And I don't want to have any regrets, whatever that might be. So these are the things that put me here, kept me going, and still keeps me going. Just remembering that point of pain. Because as Michael Beckwith says, our pain pushes us or our vision pulls us. And initially it'd be the pain possibly pushing you, and gradually the vision starts pulling you, and all the new ideas come in and the things you can create, and it gets exciting, and the post is exciting because you can't wait to share it rather than dreading sharing it. It just transforms. Yeah.
I agree with you on so many levels. I want to ask you actually how you would explain the energy of Reiki, or what you're seeing, or what you're seeing, or what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, either when you're giving Reiki, administering Reiki to yourself, or sharing it with others, either in person or at a distance. What energy, what are you working with?
Okay. So for those who don't know, Reiki is a Japanese healing modality. It's an energy healing modality that uses the hands to release blockages and balance the body. I guess in the same way that acupuncture uses needles, it's kind of like that. So when the nice thing with this, we all have it in us. Reiki stands for spiritual life force energy. So it's what we're all made of. It's just that someone found a way to deliver this energy for healing using, you know, certain techniques, you could say, but really simple techniques. But we all have it, you know, when you knocked your, I don't know, you knocked your shoulder or your elbow when you were young, you would rub yourself, or your mum would rub your shoulder, but we just wouldn't spend a lot of time there, you know, to kind of initiate that healing. The body knows how to heal itself, Carol. So even when we're giving Reiki, we're not doing the healing. We're just creating an internal condition for the healing to start. And that can't start if the body's in a state of stress, for example. So when I'm giving Reiki to someone or to myself, you know, I'm just getting really calm, really quiet. The calmer I am, the more energy I can bring through. I'm visualizing that energy as a white light coming in through the top of my head, filling me up, and it's kind of surrounding me as well. So I'm also getting a healing, which is nice, getting a bit of a healing. I'm just being this conduit, this empty vessel for this energy to kind of run through. And I'm placing my hands on or above certain points of the body for a few minutes at a time. And I'm just listening without judgment, without expectation. And I might feel an imbalance of energy at certain points in the body. It could be a chakra point, energy center, or it could be somewhere, like, as I said, the shoulder or the knee or anywhere. And I'm just feeling this, it could be heat, it could be tingling, it could be pulsating, it could be coldness, but whatever I'm feeling, it's basically telling me to spend some more time there. The Reiki energy is doing some work there. So that's my indication, just to spend some more time and not just move away. I may get insights and visions. I might see colors. Usually I see colors. Um, I might be drawn to go to another part of the body. Um, Reiki does open up your psychic ability as well. So you might get information in other ways. So where we're feeling things, that's obviously clairvoyance from clairsentience, sorry, we're feeling things, but you might not just see things as well or feel things, you might hear things. It can come in many different ways. And the more you practice Reiki, the more it kind of opens up your third eye, your spiritual connection, your psychic ability, your intuition. And the person you're working with can also feel those things. They might feel heat, tingling, sensation, static, feel really floaty, really heavy. They might see visions that mean something to them. They might see a loved one that's passed. And I do like to bring in our guides and guardian angels to be with us. It's a really loving space. But the Reiki will go where it needs to go, and it works for any spiritual, emotional, physical, mental challenge. There are no contraindications. So children, babies, pregnant women, the elderly, anyone can appreciate that healing, because it's what we're all made of. So when I'm doing my self Reiki, that's kind of what I'm feeling for, but I'm also feeling a really lovely deep sense of peace and calm. As I said, things may pop up and I might be like, oh, I want to write that down, but no, I stay there. It just feels beautiful. I can't really explain it, but it is really powerful as well. So we don't underestimate it. When we're having Reiki, it feels lovely and calm, but it can bring up emotions. That's what it's doing. So it works, carries on working for the next 3 days. And in that time, emotions may come up to be healed, like sadness, or anger even. And it's coming up because it wants to be released out. So as it hits the edge of our body and it comes more clearly to the forefront, it feels a little bit more intense. And that's usually when we push it back in. Oh no, why am I feeling that? Oh, I don't want to cry. Oh, we push it back in the body again, rather than greeting it with that compassion. And then it just goes up and it disappears and transforms back to the love. We're left feeling a lot lighter, a lot stronger. So, it's not as light and delicate as some people perceive, depending on what your intention is and what it's bringing up for you and what the root cause is of that intention. It can also take you through a bit of a healing journey, quite a strong healing journey as well. But yeah, that's what I feel.
You know what came up for me as well? How did you reconcile or did you experience any, what do I want to say? When coming from a background that's religious, right? Because I came from a religious background, so my background was very much the Pentecostal church, and then my mum moved from Pentecostal church to Church of England, so still very kind of religious based, Bible based. Until then, I went on my own kind of spiritual exploration, and was trying to kind of see, like, how does this fit in what I've believed up until this point. And then, I could find it. I remember one of the things that kind of like was a light bulb in my mind. So I'd come from the church and I stopped attending church like most people do as a teenager. And then after that, it was definitely in my 20s, then I started to get exposed to many different teachings. I think one of the earliest books that I read was Florence Scovel Shinn, The Game of Life and How to Play It. As somebody like suggested that to me, and I was reading this going, what? Like, like it just blew my mind anyway. So and I started, I would say my spiritual exploration started in that time frame. So, all the books that kind of came out round about that time, so like Neville Goddard and that all like kind of span out and just move forward and move forward. So eventually I kind of knew about the idea of law of attraction. And then I remember I was out in visiting family, my aunt in Miami, and it was just as The Secret had hit round about that time, and going to a friend of hers and watching. We all sat around the TV watching The Secret on DVD, so this was the whole kind of like, okay, what's this, and I'm like, and it kind of balanced in with other things I've been reading at the time as well, because before I'd gone. I just read Wallace Wattles. I just read Napoleon Hill, you know, all
Okay.
of those. So I'd done a lot of kind of reading around about that. So I was like, oh, this sounds like that. So it wasn't like a
Mm-hmm.
completely new idea, but it still wasn't rooted in anything that I realized. But what was interesting was that week, I remember we were watching this DVD on a Wednesday, and then I was with my aunt who still went to a church, and we went to church that weekend, and I can't remember what the preacher said, but he kind of quoted something from the Bible that was, it was law of attraction. It was basically, and I was like, oh, you know, and then it kind of pulled everything together then for me, and I didn't feel like I was disregarding anything that I'd come from. It was just
Mm-hmm.
a kind of a bigger way of experiencing what I had, because I felt
Mm-hmm.
that potentially um, religion can cage you a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of, it doesn't give you necessarily the opportunity to discover your own power,
Mm-hmm.
whereas spirituality does, and learning all of those things. But of
Mm-hmm.
course, people who are still very much in the church, when they hear about spiritual practices and beliefs and energy work, will always kind of go to the extreme of thinking it's from the devil and demon worship
Mm-hmm.
and all this kind of thing. So,
Mm-hmm.
did you encounter any of that either within yourself or with conversations you had from people that saw you move from religion into spirituality?
Yeah, I mean, for me, similar to you, I stopped going to church when I was about 15, but
Mm,
then reconnected to it after my daughter was born in 1999 because I didn't know how else to introduce her to God, if that makes sense, because I hadn't
yeah.
yet been on my full spiritual path. So yeah, I stopped going as teenagers do. We rebel, anything that we've been forced to do. I still love churches and temples and mosques. I like the because what I find sometimes with the spiritual path, it can be a lonely path.
Mm,
Whereas with the religious path, it is about communing and gathering and getting together. So that's a really nice benefit of that.
mm,
So I don't, and as I said, it gave me that initial start, like yourself, that initial connection, you know, how to pray. Um, and so there were aspects I disregarded, which were more influenced by man, if that makes sense, in order to, you know, all the rules and the dogmas and all of those things are the things I tended to shy away from and do with any kind of practice like that that's too heavy. Um, but yeah, the Reiki itself is so if I dropped out of the Catholic faith and stopped really practicing from the age of 15. So when I discovered Reiki, it didn't really cause me any conflict. I'd already been discovering various kind of different ways of thinking, I guess, and philosophies, and tried different religions. I noted that beneath them all, they all have some similarity at their foundation. And if we could stay at that pure level, it would be amazing. But I also appreciated there were different religions because there are different people and people want different things out of their religion. So that, you know, my house has many mansions is a popular Bible quote. So that kind of made sense. With Reiki, it's completely agnostic. It's not religious at all. It has some foundations in Buddhism because of the founder, but they're really beautiful, pure things that have been given to Reiki because of that connection, like focusing on self, the development of self, loving kindness, compassion, you know, being kind to others and yourself. So these are things which also come from all religions, I think. But Reiki itself is completely agnostic and not a religion. It is a practice, but it can be taken as a spiritual practice. You can make it a way of life. My students are from all different religions, some agnostic, some atheist, some uh, Muslim, Catholic, all sorts of religions. And what's nice of Reiki is you can blend it in, and that's kind of what I did. So I would do my meditation, and I still do that today. I do my self Reiki at the end of my self Reiki, which starts with this is a Reiki position as well. Gosh, we've seen it in so many different practices and religions, but it's not a religion. So once I finish my Reiki, I give thanks and I go into my prayers almost. I go into gratitude. The angels I'm calling in, they're, you know, well known in the Christian world, Archangel Michael, Gabriel, you know, all of that. So you can blend it in with your religious practice. It doesn't have to be separate from, because fundamentally it's all kind of spirituality. But certainly what I avoid doing is going into any argument about it. I don't feel I need to defend it to anybody. I completely understand why people get really passionate about not doing any kind of energy practice, because it will, if they concede to that, it will completely undermine and knock away their core beliefs. And so it's not my business to challenge that. So what I want to do is just be an example. I just live my life. I'm an example. My students come to me. I'm not dragging them off the streets. And so if anyone wants to know about Reiki, they'll ask me and I'll tell them. And that's what I also pass on to my students. Don't get into that energetic battle of Reiki is fine and right and wrong, because it just lowers your vibration. And religion has always done that, always, religions fight wars to be right, so we know that's always there. But as I said, fundamentally, most religions, when you look at them and peel everything back, at their core, they're really beautiful. But it's people that then add their own interpretation of it, for reasons, whatever it might be, to control someone or a community or a village or a people or whatever it is. I that's how it's been for me in terms of religion versus spirituality. I see them as the same, basically, in my practice anyway. But I've just resonated with something that doesn't have too many things that I should or shouldn't do, if that makes sense. And I found my way, my own way of practicing that works well for me. And that's guided me to being kind, being compassionate, now being, I've been vegan for 4 years, even to the animals, and to embrace nature more and just have space to sit and be with yourself and being compassionate. And so all the things that most of them have it in some way is in my spiritual practice, even down to, we can give Reiki to our food. So most religions have a practice of blessing the food, and so there's a lot there that I'm already doing or practicing without it having to be defined as anything, called anything, or feel like I'm a failure because I didn't do this today, didn't do this particular practice today. It very much has that compassionate component just for today. Just doing what you can. Yeah.
No, it's good to hear. I know that I've spoken to people who've struggled with, not struggled, well, had to have had that kind of, what is it that you're doing? You come from this. And, surprisingly, I've not necessarily really faced it directly. People have wanted to know, like, how, because I was a pastor's kid as well, so I came from right the centers, like added response, but it's the life has just taken me on a different journey, really, of something else, but also with the full respect of the church, and I'm glad that I, like you, took your daughter to kind of find that connection with God. There's something that has to be said for that, and then once you let religion, or let the politics of churches and the politics of religions take care of themselves, there is that core connection. Because then I do notice, whether whoever I meet, whatever their background, I will notice when I sense there's not a connection to something, and it's just a sense that you can't really, I've never found a way of being able to introduce it to them. I'm like, it's something that you have to find for yourself, and I don't call it, what I do, anything really. I talk about spirituality, but it comes up in so many different ways. And it's been a journey of coming from a religious background, but still holding true to that connection, knowing that there is just power, a power that we can unite with, a power that we can call on and direct within ourselves, and really shape our lives, and also have the power to shape our lives as well, and not feel that we're just here and it's all by chance. There can be a design, and that's, I know that has helped me through multiple difficulties all the time. So and my heart goes out to people who don't have that inquiry as well,
Hmm.
because it can really transform what
Yeah.
you do. But I sense there's a lot of change in the world right now. People are wanting something more. They might not even know what it is that they want. The more of, what does it look like? What does it taste like?
Hmm. Hmm.
Especially as we're stopping to look at, losing faith in looking outside of ourselves, realizing there's no politician, or there's no external celebrity or anybody that you've been putting up and out there, that they can't help you, not in the way that you want. And it's to be finding it for yourself somehow, whatever that looks like, and not feeling that it needs to be prescribed either
Hmm.
as well. I think it's nice to have direction and know how to do things, but don't worry about it being I used to have very prescribed practices that
Hmm.
we're doing this for 40 days, and if you mess up, then you go back and you start the whole thing, and
Hmm.
it can be interesting, but
Hmm.
then it kind of takes away from what it is.
Hmm.
But yeah, before we wrap up as well, I just want to find out where your work's going, and how you feel that you're speaking to the shifts that I sense are coming through with humanity, the collective, with people, and what they desire for themselves. And know that many women that I've spoken to that are very much tuned into astrology and understand that we are moving, and many other spiritual practices and
Hmm.
belief systems have talked about these times anyway, so that we are going
Hmm.
through new and uncharted times for us.
Hmm.
Um, how is that affecting your work, and what are you offering, if
Hmm.
that's part of what you're doing?
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. For me, the with the shift of the world, and I do feel that lockdown uh, had caused people to introspect
Mm,
and take a look at their lives and stop and reach out more for various healing modalities like Reiki, meditation. There's so much now, sound baths, women's circles, and things like that around. Um, with my own journey, it's continued where I'm finding I'm just wanting to do things that raise my vibration even more. I'm noticing what depletes me
mm,
more, whether it's something I've eaten or somewhere I'm going, and then just trying to kind of address that. But in terms of the business, it helps me to show up more powerfully if I'm managing my own energy and vibration, not just through the meditation and self Reiki, but through how I'm being, what I'm doing, what I'm eating during the day, so I can show up more powerfully.
mm,
I've always offered Reiki shares online from lockdown, but I also this year, I think also as well, it being the 10th anniversary, there's a lot going on with this year because it's a 9 year as well, as you said, into the age of Pisces now, I think it is. You probably know more than me.
Aquarius.
Um, Aquarius, okay.
Yeah. I think it's like, yeah, like Pluto's moved into Aquarius, and you have to listen to
Yeah,
one of the astrologers who's spoken about it as
yes,
well. But
yeah.
there's a lot of planetary big planets are moving this year, and it's never
Mm,
normally that many big planets that make a shift.
at
So,
one time. There's a lot of change happening this year. So
mm,
that I've been drawn to I offer Reiki shares. I'm offering one in person now, which is taking place on the 2nd of February in Croydon, um, where we haven't gathered for 5 years since lockdown. We've been doing the Reiki shares online. We get to practice on each other. I'm also about to launch a women's circle of my own, which is really focusing. So I think it is important for us to find space, as I said, to gather with other like-minded people,
mm,
because it can be a lonely journey. As I said, when we're on this journey, I'm sure everyone's experienced people fall away from your lives, fall out of your lives, who aren't a match to where you're now setting your vibration. So just having a monthly kind of women's circle where we focus on a particular female archetype, where we can either look at what we want to embody more of from them, or perhaps what triggers us about this person we need to work on, and also get some healing through some Reiki. And do some activities like journaling and things like that. So that's something which is new, and is going to be launched at the end of this weekend, for people to kind of, as I said, women to kind of gather and fortify each other, support each other, and just a really lovely space for that.
Where's that happening?
That's going to be happening online on Zoom, but the information for that will be in my newsletter. If they go to my website, myspiritualbutterfly.com, you can sign up to the newsletter where I sort of share my sort of inspirations and meditations and things like that, as well as new things that are coming up and events that are coming up. And they can also sign up for the high vibe playbook, where they'll get a play, something they can be doing once a day for 7 days, which will go into the depths and information around that. And then they can practice that for that day. And then they'll get the next email the second day. But that will put them on the mailing list, where they'll get information out about the Women's Circle. It's the first time I'm mentioning it live. Exclusive information. But I feel that's important. I do also want to hold a workshop for men, because men need healing too. And they can be a massive catalyst for change in our society, as we know, in terms of our leaders and things like that. So they often don't have the space to share openly about themselves, about what they're going through, having been brought up to keep it all inside and be strong. And so wanting to put something together for that. I've avoided it for a while, thinking maybe it should be a man doing this, but I do have men in my community, and they seem to want this. And I think we want it as women too. We want a space where our men can go and have some healing with other men, and have that vulnerability, and then they're coming back into our relationships more different, really changed. So they're the things I'm kind of focusing on. But for your community, certainly, I will give you the link to the High Vibe Playbook, which is a really lovely thing to kind of have each day for the next 7 days. But that will also put them on the mailing list, where they'll get the information about the Women's Circle. But I can share that with you independently as well. By the time this comes out, they'd have that too, because they can drop in and out of that.
Beautiful. So how can people connect with you?
Yeah, so they can reach me from my website, myspiritualbutterfly.com. I'm also on Instagram, myspiritualbutterfly. And I have some beautiful videos on YouTube. Again, My Spiritual Butterfly. So there are meditations there, as well as beautiful conversations like this with other women from other modalities that I talk to, as well as finding out more about Reiki. So they're sort of the main places that I am. I'm on Facebook and other places as well, but they're the main places they can find me. If they want to email me, they can send me a quick email. From there, if they want to talk more, but they're the main spaces. So my website, Instagram, YouTube, be the main places to find me. I'll share those links with you as well.
Yeah, it's all good. Thank you so much, Gwen. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me, and wishing you and your community so much love. You're doing a wonderful job of spreading this information and bringing in various people to share with your community. May it continue to grow and thrive. Thank you so much, Carol. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Gwen, for sharing your wisdom with me, and thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the wisdom of my guests, please feel free to share this with others who you think will benefit from this message, and also reach out to them if you feel that their offering can help you in your own journey. If you want to find out more about me, it's carolmaywhittick.com, carolmaywhittick.com. You can also connect with me on Facebook under Carol May Whittick, and on LinkedIn under the same name, and also on Instagram as Kazmic, Cazmick. So until the next week and the next episode, take care. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.